Okay, friends, this is my paper. I suggest you to use yours in horizontal position so you have space for palm 1 and space for palm 2. Let's start with the simpler one, but still very nice and effective. So first we start from the trunk of the palm and we're gonna do a nice, and look what I do, I'm using a multiple, like a very dynamic sketching line. You create your curve, nice gentle curve, and then we're gonna do the second one the same, just it's gonna be thinner on the top and then it comes up a little bit and it's gonna be slightly thicker at the bottom, just to make sure that we all have, understand where we are. This is gonna be the bottom and this is gonna be the ground where the palm tree is standing. Now, very nice tip to position our leaves. Super light that you can barely see it. Starting more or less like when you finish the trunk, you're gonna kind of do very light curved lines that goes around in a semicircle. So we know where do we position our leaves, right? Now use this as a center of the leaf, right? Like this. You can even double if you want, because anyway the center of the leaf is always darker, right, than the rest of the leaf. You can double it gently, bring them all in, and now let's build the outside of the leaves. I'm gonna do a zigzag type of line, tiny zigzag, and you start on the other side, tiny zigzag. Remember, do not press hard with the pencil. Let's go for the second one. Tiny zigzag. And then you come back. Tiny zigzag. This one will go up and it will be probably a little smaller and shorter. This one again. I will stop here because I want to overlap this one with the second one. So I'm gonna start first the top of this one. I'm gonna go down, and here too, I'm gonna wait for this one. I'm gonna do first these leaves, which is on the front, so it definitely overlaps the second one. If you wanna do like coconut here, then we can color it later on, and then maybe just a little bit of texture on the trees, right? You go with these horizontal lines, some of them closer, some of them farther apart. It's like touch and release, right? This is all a matter of pressure that you're gonna learn how to moderate. Now, palm number 1, it's done. We're gonna bring the ground all the way over here. Nice texture, right? And now let's do palm number 2, which is a little more complicated. So palm comes like they go in different direction. They are very flexible, in fact, right? So this time we're gonna do a nice, gentle sort of S line. Tiny, slightly S line. And the same, the second one, thinner, a little thicker, and a little thicker at the bottom, okay? So you have a couple of options, and when you have to do a tropical landscape, you will position your palm tree standing up, going toward left, right, S. So you create variety. Now we're gonna spend a little extra time on the texture over here. Pretend that we're going to cover up our trunk with big petals, which are not petals, but just, they come like they look more like scales actually, but look what I do. Keep going. So as you notice, I'm going a little bit outside the line, so I'm gonna still follow the directions, but I will have a nice, beautiful texture on both sides of my trunk. So it's gonna look way more natural. I'm pressing slightly harder with the pencil so I don't get confused with the lines, right? And this one will definitely stay even when I color. with markers. You can go over a little bit. You can even create a little bit of value. Look what I do. I'm just kind of coloring just slightly to create a nice value on this trunk, right? So simple, a little less simple, a little more complicated than the other, but look how already the difference, right? Now, let's do the leaves. We're gonna start with the same technique. So we're gonna kind of first shape the kind of direct the leaves where we want them, okay? Now we're gonna double, and you need to be careful because we want them to be really thin. It's like so pretty close. These two lines have to be close to each other. Take your time. If you need to fix it, you fix it. And we have the center of our palm tree, okay? Now let's do these leaves. So this time we're going to kind of do this long elongated zigzag. Very sketchy. So we're not gonna do anything on the back because we won't be able to see it actually. So this one is beautiful, but this one is definitely more accurate. Let me erase some. Now let's go with the second. Nice and long. Sketchy zigzag, or if you don't want to do the zigzag, you can do kind of a more like of a rounded shape, but whatever you do, just don't press hard with the pencil and don't make them look too perfect. Tiny little hook. In this one, because we can see a little bit of both sides, but this one is gonna be the size that we can see the most. So we're gonna still do, I will probably go like that. I will give you a lot of movement because we wanna represent sort of a wind, right? And then shorter this side. And then shorter this side and way longer. Now here we go back to do just one side. And here we can do both. This one is gonna be shorter and this one is gonna be very long. Now we are going to add a little here. I'm gonna bring them everything down, and don't worry because when we create a little bit of value, right, we want this to be the darkest point. And don't worry about this because when we color, if you want, you can color with the pencil. So you can kind of see better when you wanna go with a darker green. This one looks very pretty already as it is, even in black and white, right? Just because we use multiple sketchy lines, we have already more texture, we have some value already built on the trunk, so definitely it's a little improved palm trees. Final touches with the pencil before we start the coloring. Now, here too, we're gonna give you some value, so you can even trace the lines if you want. One side of the palm trees would be lighter, so I'm gonna use a kind, almost an orangey brown first. You can use a light orange to do this side. Nice and soft, nice and soft. And then we can use a darker brown, burnt Sierra, which is the traditional brown that you will find in every type of markers, regardless the brand. But now we're gonna go over the lighter. And we're gonna go over our darker that will look darker. You see, we can overlap the markers and make them look way darker. Now we're gonna use a dark green to do the inside of our palm tree. And if you need to double the lines, do so. And now we are gonna work with darker, the same green to color this one. So go first and outline the zigzag lines, then bring the color down. And try to color in the direction of the leaves, right? Because in this way, even if you don't think, but the strokes of the markers will actually support the direction of the object that you're drawing. So if I color like this, I will kind of flat my leaf down. Instead, if I follow the direction of the leaves and any design that I did, my coloring will support the design way better and way more. We're gonna do the bottom of the leaves darker. In absence of multiple greens, so you can use the same color to color the whole thing. So don't stress yourself and don't worry too much. This time on this side, because the light is coming from here, so this side is gonna be lighter, and this is why I'm gonna do the top darker. And once again, I'm doing the strokes, which is basically this movement is called the stroke. I'm doing them in the same direction that my leaves are going. So I do support the design instead to fight it back, right? Or to flat it down. And it makes more sense. So this one is gonna be lighter. This one is going to be darker. This one, the bottom, is going to be darker. And the top is going to be lighter. Now let's use our bright green. Remember to follow the direction of the leaf. So don't color, for example, like this, but color in the direction. If you need to move the paper around, please move the paper around, of course. So find your comfort zone, what makes your practice doable for you. And our last. Now, if you have a third type of green, as I do, you can go over both to kind of incorporate these two colors together, but still having a darker and a lighter. You can do this with a yellow, for example, if you don't have another green, and it's going to work the same. Beautiful. Now, let's switch to our Sharpie. So we do the outline and the texture, and we're gonna color the coconut black. I know that the coconut is actually a very dark brown grayish, but the black will do its job. Now we are gonna go down. Remember about the pressure. We don't want perfect lines. And now we're gonna do the texture, right? You can go over the lines and the little strokes that you did with the pencil, but you can also add more in other spaces that you didn't touch before. It's like having two different textures, one from the pencil and one from the Sharpie. And then we can also do some tiny, very super light. So put the markers very in a diagonal position. And then we can just go with nice little strokes on top to enhance the texture, because palm trees, the trunks is really textured. Gonna do the same on the ground. In case you want to turn this into a landscape, you will be able to do a sand colors and maybe a beautiful ocean on the back with an island far away. And now we're gonna do again, we're gonna go around and do the zigzag. Remember, you don't have to do the same perfect zigzag that you did with the markers, because it's gonna create that optical illusion that we need of texture. And this is just what we want. And really, to do this, you really need to focus on the pressure of your hands, nice and light, so you have your wrist, the fingers, and everything free to move. Then if you want, you're gonna do the central part. You can go over, and we can also add a few more just to support these beautiful shapes, right, of the palm trees that from the center open up. Dark it up to create a beautiful illusion of shadow between the leaves. A little more like texture probably over here. We go with this diagonal line because there is a little bit of the shadow projected by this leaf on the trunk. And this is our palm number 1, all done. Now let's proceed to palm number 2. Gonna go once again this orange. I'm not gonna fulfill all the space, so you see I'm kind of working more on with a type of a sketchy type of coloring, right? A little bit. I'm gonna add some colors inside the texture that I created for the trunk, and then I'm gonna switch to another markers, the darker, and then I can go over. So we're gonna kind of fill with colors. And because we did some nice value work with the pencil, you can still see that underneath the marker. And if you think that you don't have enough and you need more value, go ahead and keep shading a little more, or use even a darker brown. Let's start with our dark green. We are gonna kind of go over gently and carefully. If you need to double the line, do so. gonna double a little bit this one. And now, the same way that we did this, the sketchy type of line, these elongated loops, you're gonna do the same. You go back, down and up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Nice. And once again, if the markers go a little bit outside of the pencil, or vice versa, that you can still see the pencil, is totally fine. First, because if you don't like it, you can erase the pencil after you finish the coloring with the markers before you do the black outlines. Okay. Remember that these loops, they are similar, but they don't have to be equal in shape or in size. On the contrary, you really want to create some variety. So basically in these palms, we are doing the single, like every single leaves, instead to give a general idea. So definitely this one is a little bit more realistic, more sophisticated. So for a little more advanced landscape. But you know, you're gonna practice and you're gonna treasure the practice that is appropriate for your age level and your skill level, right? That doesn't mean that you don't practice this one. You still get to practice, but it's okay if it doesn't come exactly like mine. Now with the lighter green, we're gonna kind of go over with nice little strokes, just to create a nice variation in colors, right? So remember that the palm trees has the leaves also behind. It's just that because of the position of the branches, we cannot see it, right? And once again, when you overlap light and darker colors with markers and you kind of play with this technique, you can create a way better product, even with markers, right? Sometimes we think, oh, markers are plain, or no, absolutely. Let's set the ground with some nice texture. And now we go. Once again, I'm using a more sketchy type of line for these palm trees because we don't want to kind of reduce and flatten the beautiful design, but we want to keep it exactly nice and dynamic as it is. You can do some nice textures. Basically, it's really light scribble, friends. Light scribbles, nothing more. You can do some spikes like we did for the one that you would do maybe for cacti, for cactuses. Well, cacti is plural. I know it's such a weird word. Something that we didn't do here, right? Still beautiful and nice texture. This one is a little more improved, isn't it? Then you can enhance the darkness doing this nice rounded scribble. You can go over one time on the center, like on the branches. There you go. And if you want, and I suggest you to do so, tiny nice strokes. Some of them are shorter, some of them longer, to support this beautiful pattern, right, of the leaves. The secret is go slow, but actually in this case, go quick when you release. Do not add pressure. If you need to do it slower, go like that, position and touch and release, position and touch and release. And this is our palm number 2 all done. So I hope you enjoyed this practice. It's getting a little more complicated, but we are building, we are scaffolding, right? Building on top of our skills. So I hope that your palm trees look nice and you're satisfied by this practice. Keep working hard on your drawing skill because they are very beneficial. I hope to see many of you the next time. Ciao!